You know that feeling? You're scrolling your feed and suddenly a friend pops into your head. Someone you haven't seen post in, well, maybe ever. In a world that's all about constant updates, some people are just quiet. They're what you might call social media ghosts. So today, we're going to dive into the fascinating psychology behind why they choose to stay unseen.
It's a pretty good question, right? I mean, in this hyper-connected culture we live in, choosing to be invisible feels like a really radical act. We all know someone like this. A friend, a family member, a colleague who is totally present in the real world but is a complete mystery online. So, what's really going on there? Well, our minds tend to jump to some pretty standard conclusions, don't they? We figure, oh, they must be painfully shy, or maybe they've got something to hide. Or we think, well, maybe their lives just aren't post-worthy. And of course, there's the classic assumption they're just plain antisocial. What if the choice to stay silent online isn't a sign of weakness, but actually a profound signal of strength?
Okay, so this brings us to our first big idea, a deep, unshakable confidence that just doesn't need an audience to exist. And we're not talking about arrogance here. This is about a fundamental sense of self that isn't depending on what anyone else thinks. The psychological term for this is intrinsic confidence. It's basically a form of self-esteem that is completely self-sustaining. Just think about that for a second. It doesn't need likes, it doesn't need comments, it doesn't need shares to feel validated because all of that validation comes from within. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Their achievements, their joys, their personal growth, it's all for them. They feel good about their life without ever feeling the need to turn it into a public announcement or some kind of performance for everybody else. So, where does this kind of confidence even come from? Well, it's built on a few really powerful traits. First up is strong self-awareness, what psychologists call high self-concept clarity, which just means they know who they are. This isn't shyness, it's security. And that leads to a self-esteem that doesn't go looking for approval because it's already grounded in their own values. And, that kind of inner confidence leads directly to our next point, having a totally different set of priorities. It's all about choosing privacy over popularity. And believe me, it's a very conscious choice. Now, here's a crucial distinction that we often miss. We see their quietness and we automatically assume it's secrecy, that they must have something to hide. But for these folks, it isn't about hiding at all. It's about setting a healthy boundary. It's about consciously controlling what and who they allow into their mental and emotional space. I love this quote because it totally reframes that antisocial myth. See, they aren't against connecting with people. They're just really selective about where and how they invest their energy. They get that giving everyone open access to you can be totally draining, so they choose their connections wisely. Think about this comparison for a minute. For so many people, the top priority is curating and protecting their online image. But for the social media ghost, that same level of energy is directed inward, toward protecting their inner peace. It's not that their life is boring, they just value a totally different currency. And that whole idea of protecting your peace, well, that leads us right into our third point, choosing a quiet reality over the constant pressure of putting on a digital performance. Let's be honest, we've all fallen into this trap. Social comparison theory is the whole reason that scrolling through other people's highlight reels can make us feel so inadequate. People who stay quiet online are often super aware of this psychological pitfall, and they consciously choose to sidestep it to protect their own mental health. There's a cool psychological term for this, an internal locus of evaluation. All it means is that their sense of worth and their satisfaction comes directly from their own personal standards. The opinions of the crowd, the likes, the comments, all of that just becomes noise. It's not a measuring stick for their life. All right, and all of this brings us to our final section where we kind of flip the script on what it means to be quiet online. It's not about absence or falling behind, it's about harnessing the incredible power of silence. Just let that idea sink in for a moment. In the digital world, silence feels like a void, right? We see it as disengagement, as someone just falling off the map. But that is a complete and total misconception. Because for these individuals, silence is where the real work happens. It's the space they've created for deep thinking, for building their business, for creating art, for personal growth. Mastery in anything requires undivided attention, and that's exactly what their silence gives them. And this right here might be the most powerful takeaway of all. They haven't disappeared, They're just deeply immersed in their own thing. While some of us are busy crafting the perfect post to describe our lives, they're busy actually living it. They aren't just narrating the journey, they are the journey.
And this just sums it all up so beautifully. Some experiences are too precious, too personal, to be packaged up for public consumption. They understand that the value of a moment isn't determined by how many people see it, but by how deeply it's felt. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In our own lives, when we reach for our phones to capture a moment, who are we really capturing it for? Is our happiness a performance we put on for an audience, or is it something we cultivate quietly and authentically, just for ourselves?